What's good, everyone? OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Today we're taking a look at how the Nintendo Switch OLED model is going to boost Metroid Dread sales past its previous franchise best. And how are they going to do that? Well, marketing is the first step, but I want to point out a number of things that were cleverly put into the Nintendo Switch OLED model trailer and what Nintendo's been doing on Twitter in order to explain my point. But before we get into that, please make sure you hit that like button and also subscribe if you are someone new. Now, before we get into all the new things that Nintendo's doing, so far leading up until the launch of Metroid Dread, ever since it's been announced at the E3 Nintendo Switch presentation, the direct showcase on there has been a ton of positive buzz. I have seen comment after comment after comment from people saying that this is going to be my first Metroid game. I can't wait to get back into Metroid. I can't believe it's been this long. I mean, there is a lot of positive buzz. If you look at the Metroid Dread gameplay that Nintendo put up and the trailer itself, it's doing fantastic numbers. So people are definitely more excited for Metroid Dread, or just as excited for a Metroid game that I have ever seen in the history of me covering Nintendo when it comes down to it, and the history of me actually just looking at Metroid games before the launch. This is the most hype that I've seen people when it comes down to it. So that's obviously a good sign. Nintendo also has their Metroid Dread reports that they're doing, but the biggest thing I think at this point that we've seen so far that's going to help push Metroid Dread past the, I would just say, the line, right? They've never been able to cross that 3 million line on a single release platform. It's going to be this Nintendo Switch OLED. Now, there isn't an official Nintendo Switch OLED model like Metroid Dread Edition, but if you look at the Metroid Dread Samus's suit, right? You look at the box art, you look at just like the style of the game, the aesthetics with the main enemies and also with Samus. White is such a main type of prominent color on there. And this Nintendo Switch OLED model, the prominent color, what they showed off is white. Now, they're also doing a neon and blue. If you don't want the white Joy-Cons, you can go with that. But they've been showing off this white and black type of model. When it comes down to it, that's the one that they're kind of showing to see that it's different. And to me, that's really going to help out with Metroid Dread, considering the aesthetics of the game. And they were very certain to make sure that they said, hey, this new Nintendo Switch OLED model, this is directly from Twitter, directly from there, launches separately on the same day as hashtag Metroid Dread on October 8th for $349.99. The system will be available in both the Nintendo Switch OLED model white and the Nintendo Switch OLED model neon red / neon blue set. So I just find it interesting, just real quick little side thing here. It's not called like Nintendo Switch OLED and like that's the official name. It's called like Nintendo Switch in parentheses OLED model. I find that hilarious. Nintendo's trying to make sure that there is absolutely zero confusion on what this system is compared to a Nintendo Switch Lite or a regular Nintendo Switch or the Nintendo Switch version 2, which there's no other name for that. It's just, hey, this is just the Nintendo Switch. So it's interesting that Nintendo wants to make sure. People were thinking Nintendo was going to call it the new Nintendo Switch or some type of crazy name because of what they've done in the past. I think Nintendo has had enough headaches when it comes to the Wii U and also when it comes to the new Nintendo 3DS to kind of get the picture here with this one and say, hey, let's not do anything that's going to be confusing. If anything, it's going to be more boring when it comes down to it, or very standard, or what you would expect. Nintendo Switch Lite, Nintendo Switch OLED model. It's just called that. Heck, they put the parentheses in there just to make sure you knew that. So very interesting on that front. But let's get back to Metroid Dread and what's going on here. So when you go out and pick up a new system, you're always looking for that hot new game that is coming out. You're usually looking for a game that launches with that system, whether it be like a Nintendo Switch Lite, and they're talking about like Link's Awakening or some of the other games. You're looking for something to get with that. Now with the Nintendo Switch OLED model, the first game that they showed off in that trailer was Metroid Dread. The first game that they showed looking on that screen and being able to play was that game. That is a huge marketing boost. Like, the trailer right now is doing gangbusters on YouTube. People are circulating the videos, people are talking about it, and you are constantly seeing that Nintendo Switch OLED, the white with the white Metroid Dread type of aesthetics with Samus's suit and everything. That is a big marketing push. It might not seem much to the core gamers out there because a lot of us already knew what it is or knew what we wanted or whatever the case is. But for people that are just going to go out there and say, hey, well, this is a new Switch and, you know, it's $349, $50 more, but I get a better OLED screen and I get an Ethernet port and stuff put in there. Obviously, not enough for some people when it comes to the core fans in terms of what they could have added. But for many people, this is going to be a very good buy. Heck, for a lot of the core gamers, they're going to buy it, especially if you love playing in portable mode. That OLED screen is a game changer. Just OLED screens in general are a game changer. Heck, I use my OLED screen with my LG CX with my regular Nintendo Switch, and it definitely looks good. Would have liked the DLSS and 4K upscaling if they could have got it, but that is a video for another day. But when it comes down to it, people are looking for that new game to pick up, and Metroid Dread is right there with the same aesthetics of that new Nintendo Switch model with the Nintendo Switch OLED. So to me, it's a win-win. It's a, okay, here's this game, here's this. Nintendo is intertwining them. They're making sure that when they announced the Nintendo Switch OLED model, they talked about Metroid Dread. They talked about it on Twitter. They're having their Metroid Dread reports, and the game is going to be fantastic. The first 2D Metroid game in 20 years, just about that time. Yeah, I think Nintendo marketing with it is going to be the time that this game just ends up doing extremely good. Having a new game launch alongside brand new hardware with new features has historically always been one of the biggest boosts that you can give to a game out there, period. So Metroid Dread is the game that's being picked for that, and to me that is such a great call on that one. Nintendo's obviously struggled to sell Metroid in terms of as good as it should be selling, considering how good the franchise is. All of the mainline big Metroid games are usually really good. None of them are really terrible. I mean, there are some people who don't like some of them, and I get that. Metroid Other M, whatever the case is. I'm not counting Federation Force and some of the other spin-off and other things that they've done, but most of the time, the mainline Metroid games, especially the 2D Metroid games, all of them are really good. I have never played a really bad 2D Metroid game, and the last one that we got with Fusion was absolutely amazing. Well, the last new one, Metroid Samus Returns, which was the last game, was also really good, and that was on a 240p screen. 240p, regular, standard, old tech of that screen. Now we're moving all the way up to the Nintendo Switch with HD and with OLED. Man, that is really good and very enticing for many people out there. So I definitely see this brand new Nintendo Switch OLED getting copped quite a bit, and I see people also picking up Metroid Dread as well. Now, I do want to just get into a little bit more. I know I discussed it a bit, but I do think that Nintendo will have more of these because it is the same day as Metroid Dread, so you do have that big game coming out. And since how this Nintendo Switch model isn't a complete change of the chipset, it's still the Tegra X1. I don't think Nintendo had to reach, or Nintendo didn't have to kind of stretch to get extra parts and other things for this. So they should have a plentiful supply of the parts for this new model. Like, it's not anything crazy. It's not some type of big different thing that they have to manufacture in a different way. It's still using what they use in the regular Nintendo Switch and the Nintendo Switch Lite. So as long as they cross their T's and dot their I's when it comes down to it, there should be a good number of these. There was even enough of them to say, hey, we're going to do 2 of the different models with 2 separate ones, with the regular neon blue and neon red, and then also with the white as well. So to me, it seems like there's going to be a lot of these because they're going to anticipate that more people are going to be buying this because of Metroid Dread and because it's a new model Switch and it has an OLED screen on there. Anybody who's experienced OLED before, you kind of know how good OLED screens are. Yes, the Vita originally had them before they switched over to something else too. So yeah, the Vita, I have an OLED Vita. It still looks good to this day, and that wasn't even HD. That was like 540p or something like that. So even back then, right, even with that, so now you're actually getting bumped up here with the 720p OLED screen, and who knows how good quality in terms of like the OLED is going to be. It could be a lot better in terms of what they're doing with the Nintendo Switch OLED model. So to me, I think it's a win-win when it comes down to it. I can still see how some would be disappointed, considering like it would have been nice to have like this new OLED model Nintendo Switch, and it also does like DLSS and upscales 4K, so it looks cleaner with Metroid Dread on your TV. But I'm pretty sure that it's still going to look really good whether you play it docked or whether you play it on the portable side too. So we'll see what happens going forward. I'm looking forward to Metroid Dread breaking every single record when it comes to Metroid games out there. And of course, the future is Balan Wonderworld for a content creator that's a good friend of the channel. So what do you guys think about this when it comes to it? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Check out the links in the description. We've got Twitter. Go and give us a follow on there. Stay up to date on all the latest gaming news and information. Also, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and share this video if you can. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll catch you for the next one. Peace.